clarification for you. If I could just go back to something you said that Soros and his aligned NGOs and the movement that he represents has pushed these things because they sincerely believe them to be true. But they haven't pushed them on any nation outside the West. No one is pushing China to let in 1 million or 10 million relative to its size migrants a year, or India, or for that matter, Korea or Japan or the Philippines or any other country. It's only Western countries. Why, in their mind, is it only Western countries that need unrestricted migration?
That would request a deeper understanding of the intellectual history of the European political thinking. But there was always a strong leftist liberal community which was not proud being a Westerner. Always have perceived its own civilization as something bad. And their intention was not to make it stronger and to maintain and make it stronger, but rather to destroy, to improve by destroying. That's very communist idea. Deleting the past. That was always the communist idea. So they don't like the West, they don't like their nation. Sometimes they are ashamed to belong to a nation because they think that nation is a bad thing. So if you think that nation is something good and you are proud of it and you think that you have to work for your nation to be competitive and better than the others, it's an awful Nazis, extreme right something. That's their approach. That's the tradition of the European left. And in the latest years, it was brutally witnessed in the everyday political discussion. So I'm a fascist, I'm sitting here like, I'm a bad guy. I'm a fascist. I am middle-aged, feudalistic, Christian radicals, so that's who is arguing for peace, which is the worst thing, yeah? That's absurd, may I say.
So this has been going on since the end of the last big war, so 80 years, and particularly migration. And so I think we can render some judgment. How has that worked for the big nations of Europe, for Britain, Germany, France? Can we look back and say that experiment was a success?
You mean?
Migration.
Migration?
Just unrestricted migration.
So we are living in, under a liberal dictatorship intellectually, but politically it's still, we are living in democracies. So public opinion counts. And I think now we have a problem of democracy because of the migration. It's not just a problem of migration, problem of democracy. Because if you have an elite which is not ready to accept the obvious public will of your voters, instead of accepting that, forcing against the population their own crazy ideas, it raised the problem of democracy. Because,
right.
So that's where we are. Because now there's a quite strong shift in the mindset of the Western societies. Previously, at the beginning of the mass migration period, I'm speaking about 2015, 2016, there were half and half of the societies, even probably more than half, was in favor of doing something good in favor of those who were considered as refugees. Then slowly but surely turned to be that they are not refugees, basically. They're changing their place. There are some of them refugees, but basically the majority of them would like to get a better life, simply. And they are organized by smugglers. It's an international black business, so it's an awful business. So, and now the terrorism, somehow related to this whole changes, just come up to the surface. It's never happened earlier. Terrorism was not part of the Western life anyway. If I remember back, the last one was in the 70s, some crazy communist Marxist group of Germany. But after that, terrorism is not part of the Western life. Violence of public life does not belong to us. But now terrorism is up, public order is dispersing. So now the society is against the mass migration policy. So Willkommen Kultur, as it was called by Angela Merkel, now it's totally negative. And the problem is that the elite was so much committed to that ideology that now it's difficult to change their position. And that leads us to the problem of democracy. As we will see in Germany just soon, election is coming 2 weeks' time. So, and you probably have realized that there were some surprising discussion in the German parliament whether to change the migration regulation or not. And the public opinion said, 70% said, yes, you should change it. And they voted against it. So it's a problem of democracy. It's not just a problem of migration, it's not a problem of leadership. The whole structure and the system is under pressure at this moment.
The word democracy has been changed, its meaning has been changed in the United States to mean whatever the people in charge want is democracy, but you're referring to it by its traditional meaning, which means what the majority wants, correct?
Yes, but at the same time, don't forget that democracy is a word we use too much, probably too often without understanding exactly what does it mean. There are many theories, as you know, but the most relevant one is the Greek origin of the understanding of democracy. They said that democracy means two things at the same time. Participation of the people, involvement, but the involvement of the people must be resulted in good governance. If the involvement of the people, the public opinion, does not result in good governance, it's anarchy, it's not democracy. So democracy means participation of the people by their voting in the major decisions, and the outcome must be a good governance. If one of them is lacking, it's not democracy. And now in Europe, we are heading to a position when the people has a chance to vote, but there is no chance to get good governance. So we are moving rather towards a kind of anarchical public life in West Europe.
So Germany specifically, from the outside, you're a European leader, but from an American perspective, Germany is the dominant economic player in the continent, and
the giant.
It feels that way from our perspective. And so what is the German economy, what does it look like right now? How would you assess it?
Okay, the German economy is part of the European bomb because we have the single market. And the single market as such is in trouble. I'm in politics, international politics, for more than 30 years. And I do remember that 30 years ago, the biggest economy of the world was the European Union. And now it's only number 3. And if you look at the top 5 economies of the world, there is no European among them. So the European Union, economically, it's not a success story. And the success of European Union will always strongly link to the success of German economy. And now they are suffering and we are suffering. And the reason is very simple. There was a quite well-functioning structural model of the German economy and the European economy. That was cheap Russian energy and well-advanced European technology come together, and we are competitive. But now, after the war, we isolated ourselves from the cheap energy, and there is no new strategy, how we could be competitive. So we have a lost strategy, but we don't have a new one. There's no replacement for the old one. So now the problem is that we don't have compass where we should move. So we are just managing the daily work, but there is no real strategy. What is the future of the European economy? No answer of that. That's the reason why China, United States, because President Trump is back, obviously is in a far better position than we are. Lack of leadership, lack of ideas, lack of visions. That's why we suffer.
Well, I mean, the Biden administration imposed the Green New Deal on Germany with high explosives by blowing up Nord Stream. So on many levels, I don't understand. So you have the largest player in NATO committing an act of terror, industrial terrorism, against the second largest player in NATO. How does NATO still exist, honestly? And why does nobody say anything about it?
Hungary is a small country, so 10 million, so elephants is a different game. It's another league, so that's how they live. If it would have happened with Hungary, there would be some noise, no question of that. But, it's Germany.